ICQ Podcast episode 462, Service Aids. Well, hello fellow amateur radio enthusiasts, and welcome to episode 462 of your ICQ Amateur Radio Podcast, supported in this episode by John Andrea Senior, AA5 Juliet Delta, Charles Carter, Alpha Alpha Zero Romeo India, and Roy Jones VK6 Romeo Romeo, and of course our monthly and subscription donors. In this episode we join Martin M1MRB, Caryn KD2 Golf Uniform Tango, Edmund Mike Zero Mike November Golf, and Ed DD5 Lima Papa to discuss the latest amateur radio news. Myself, Colin M6BOY, rounds up the news in brief, and this episode's feature is on service aids. Well, as always, it's your wonderful generosity that keeps your ICQ Amateur Radio Podcast advert free, and so produced for you every fortnight, and its independent voice kept heard. And this episode, we'd like to thank John Durrant Senior, Alpha 5 Juliet Delta, who says he really appreciates the podcast. Charles Carter, just a nice message, say you're welcome for the support, so thank you, Charles, for helping us out there. That's Charles AA0 Romeo India. And Roy Jones, VK6 Romeo Romeo, says congratulations, always a great listen, and thank you to all of the team. So thanks guys for your very kind support in this episode, we really do appreciate it. The ICQ podcast follows a very simple model. It's the value for value model. So if you find some value in today's episode and you really enjoy what the team are producing for you, turn that into a monetary figure that's of value to yourself, and that can be sort of at any range. Really does depend on what value you put on it, on your own values. And go to our very important webpage, ICQPodcast.com/donate, where, as I say, you can select one of our options there to pop that donation over, and so everything you send our way goes towards keeping your ICQ podcast advert free and keeping everything running away for you. While you're there, consider one of the subscription donations that our monthly subscription donors also do. That keeps us, as I say, ticking along when the one-off donations aren't there, and that's a great way of showing your support as well on an ongoing basis. So that's a nice simple thing to do, to visit ICQPodcast.com/donate. Right, well, now we're going to go in Martin, Caryn, Edmund and Ed to discuss and generate thoughts about the latest amateur radio news, including a Lightweight M17 Hotspot, and India-US satellite eyes natural disasters. As always, hope you enjoy.
Well, hi guys, and welcome to the ICQ Podcast News Roundtable for episode 462. 462, guys. We're getting there anyway. Tonight, I'm joined by Caryn Eve Murray KD2GUT. Hi, Caryn.
Great to see you, or, well, at least to hear you. How you doing, Martin?
I'm ducking and diving, Caryn, and failing miserably most of the time, but hey, that's life. But we're having fun anyway. No Dan Romacek this episode. He's on his way to do another one-day tech class, so we wish him all success there. Back my side of the pond, we have Mr. Edmund Spicer M0MNG. Hi, Edmund.
Hello, Martin. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, good to have you, mate. And over there in Germany, we have Mr. Ed Durrant DD5LP. Hi, Ed. You tell us it's sunny today.
Yeah, first time in about 2 weeks. We've had overcast and rain for quite a while, so nice and sunny. And yeah, looking forward to this evening's show and then getting back onto the radio for the special events.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Sounds good to me, mate. Right, we start our first news story with a lightweight version of the Hotspot has now been made available for M17. Now, our Bill said maybe somebody ought to fork the software. I think that's what's happened. And in some ways, when we said last episode, we thought that M17 had probably not got long to live. But this looks good. What do you think, Ed?
Okay, two things happened, and Bill predicted what was going to happen. The code that runs in MMDVM is open source, and therefore any open source code, anybody else can take it and work on it as long as they give back the changes to the central source, and they do that by creating what's called a new fork of the software. That's been done. And so people that have hotspots that they have been using for M17, running the MMDVM code, they can now load this different code on them and continue to use M17 through them. In addition to that, if you're looking for a hotspot that just covers M17, that's what the CC 1200 hat, so that's a board that plugs on top of a Raspberry Pi, does, and it only handles M17, and that's what this article is. And there's been some work done on that so that the software and the hardware is coming together, so it now gives more choice. If you only want M17, you can get a hotspot for your home or your car or wherever that only does M17. If you want a hotspot that will also handle DMR, D-Star, Yaesu Fusion, etc., etc., then the existing ones are fine. With the other forked software, they can also support M17. So I guess this is the difference between having things that are based around open source software and open source hardware and things that are proprietary. That if one developer decides he doesn't want to support a particular feature, for whatever reason, good reasons, bad reasons, it doesn't matter. He has that option, but then other people can come along and make their own version and put the support back in or put better support in or whatever. And that's what's happened. So M17 support is around again, and we'll obviously watch over the next months what comes down the road. But it's actually nice to see that there's more choice there, both hardware and software. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, I agree with you, mate. And somewhere, don't ask me to lay my hands on it right this minute, I've actually got the circuit diagram of an MMDVM board because it was open source. They published it. I've seen the hardware for it. And it's an interesting board, but it could be replicated very, very quickly. And so, yeah, at least, but from my point of view, at least I feel happy that M17 hasn't just been killed off. Yeah, I think there's things have to happen on M17, but it hasn't been killed off, so that's a good one. Caryn, what's your thoughts on that one?
Well, Martin, I may have to pass on this. I really have no experience with M17. I will just say in principle, I love the fact that amateur radio is encouraging and welcoming for anything open source. And I think that's really the greatest asset, is to encourage people to develop things that are open source and to encourage contributions. It's a kind of a teamwork that costs nobody anything, and everybody benefits. But I, again, don't know very much about this project, so I will pass.
Yeah, no problems, Caryn. I mean, in fairness, in the big scheme of things, M17 hasn't made it into the biggest market yet. I say, yeah, it could do, but it's up against DMR, Yaesu Fusion, and D-Star. And although they keep telling us there's lots of advantages, they haven't got the numbers out there. And until you get a big enough number out there, then, it's going to suffer a little bit. But I'm pleased it's still there. Edmund, I know you don't have M17, but you have DMR and hotspots. But what's your thoughts?
Well, I have DMR, C4FM, Yaesu System Fusion, and D-Star, but I very rarely use any of them beyond M17 being a digital mode, and I get the impression that it's not used very much, if at all, in the UK, whereas overseas I get the impression it's used slightly more. The only thing I know about it is that it's, according to the advert that I'm looking at here, the only digital protocol, quote, designed, made and implemented by hams. So I applaud the innovation, but I think to myself, we've got 3 incompatible digital voice modes already. Do we really need any more? He said, being a rather miserable old thing. Other than that, Martin, I've never used it. I've never seen anybody else use it, and I don't know anything about it, I'm afraid. Sorry.
No, that's a fair statement. It's a fair statement. And yeah, there's the three main amateur ones. There's also the NXDN and P25, which are also digital modes. So you're right, there are quite a number of different digital modes for VHF and UHF. One thing I will say, and it's not in the news stories here, guys, but I just want to reiterate something I said earlier. I read the press release from the ARDC because the last episode there was a discussion between two people, the M17 group and the MMDVM group had a bit of a falling out. There was a very, very interesting press release from the ARDC that said they're not going to comment on individuals because that's not what they do. And Rosie wrote a great piece saying, how the ARDC have done and how they've made one or two mistakes, but they're getting it together. And in fairness, I think I was quite impressed with the press release. But if you want to find it, go to the ARDC website and look it up. So that's a good one. Right. Here we go. We keep hearing about satellites being turned off, but there's a joint India-US satellite eyes natural disaster. So, Caryn, you were telling me that India is suffering a phenomenal amount of natural disasters at the moment, so it does kind of make sense that India's putting this satellite up. What do you think?
This is great news. That's what I think. This is wonderful news. The fact that it's an unprecedented partnership for a satellite of this kind between India and the US. We all read about the floods, the monsoons, the landslides, all of the natural disasters people in India suffer with, the loss of life, the loss of homes. It's something that it's hard to get a handle on something like that. It's hard to plan ahead. It's hard to know where it's going to strike enough in advance to maybe contain some of the damage that results. Well, also here in the U.S., we're having lots more bad weather, lots more disasters. Ask anybody in the Carolinas, ask people in the Gulf region, ask people in Texas. It's tough tough living on planet Earth right now. So this partnership will basically support this satellite which studies the surface of the Earth. Now we're looking at everything from glaciers to swampy areas to Great Plains to grassy areas. It really will be gathering, I think it's many, many, many terabytes of data on a daily basis and studying it with accuracy and making this data available to people on the internet, to researchers, to scientists, to planners, to those who can perhaps devise ways to contain some of the damage. Obviously, you're not going to change the course of nature. Nature's bigger than all of us, at least certainly right now and for the foreseeable future, but there are ways to mitigate the impact. And I think a project like this is fantastic. I love seeing international partnerships like this. India launched it, which is especially cool. India's really coming along in its progress, and I applaud this effort. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, well, say India have been launching satellites as well for quite some time, but this sounds like a really good one that they're launching. I don't know if amateurs will be able to get the data off it, or whether they'll publish it on the internet as well. But it's certainly a move in the right direction. Edmund, What do you think on this one?
You heard what I was thinking then, didn't you? Yes, I was wondering if there's any way that the likes of me might be able to receive any data from this, but it's always good when two organisations that up till now have never collaborated together actually work together on something like this, because both may have ideas or experiences that the other can benefit from. So good news, Martin. And if there's any chance of being able to receive anything from this, then I will certainly have a go. But I doubt there'll be any signals coming down in the amateur bands, will there?
Possibly not, or possibly not available to us in the early days. But when it's been up there a while, maybe we'll find out more about it. Ed, what's your thoughts on this one?
I found interesting in this is we've often heard about weather satellites and the high quality cameras that take pictures, and we're used to seeing pictures being built up from dots, etc. In this case, though, this is not an optical camera that's on board. This is actually a microwave radar, and that makes a lot of sense because you want to see what's going on at ground level, and if there's clouds in the way, a normal camera isn't going to help you, but hopefully microwave radar is going to show you what's below the satellite. Hence the, as they say, unprecedented accuracy, and the fact that all the data is about 80 terabytes a day is actually going to be made free access, open access on a cloud platform, so in the internet, so that researchers and governments around the world are able to view it. Now, whether you have to be part of a educational organisation to get access to that data is possibly the case, because if you leave it wide open, somebody's going to hack in there and destroy it. So you need to have some kind of security there. But the fact that it's microwave data, it's microwaves collecting data, and all power to ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organisation. Yeah, they're getting a good image and a good record in the launching of spacecraft and satellites and other issues. So it's nice to see that India are doing well in that direction, and it's another option where perhaps finding a slot to put up this satellite on some of the rockets out of the US or out of Russia or wherever might be difficult, but maybe in India there's a bit more capacity with it. They're being fairly new in the industry. But yeah, all good stuff. And of course, ISRO actually employ quite a few amateur radio enthusiasts. There will not be an amateur radio part to this satellite. This is purely research and also warning of natural disasters. So really a first of its kind. And it'll be interesting to see if when this one's successful, there's more of them going up to cover more area more quickly. But again, as we often say on this podcast, the downside of all of this is it's all more space junk. In this case, useful space junk, but it's still taking up more and more space in Earth orbits. So, plus and minus. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, well, it's plus and minus on the space junk, but nowadays when they have to deorbit them properly or dispose of them properly, not just leave them bumping into each other, that's probably a better thing, Ed. Right, move to our next news story. 2 World War II era code-related events are going to happen soon. And this is a fun. I know, Edmund, you do a lot of special events, but I'm going to give it to Caryn first because these happen in the States. Caryn, tell us what you think.
Okay, thanks, Martin. It's all about the code. It's all about the code. The first event taking place is a special event station honoring, once again, the Navajo Code Talkers, the Marines who, during World War II, were an elite unit using their Navajo language, They were Native Americans. They used their Navajo language to craft an unbreakable code. And that remarkable achievement is honored every year with a special events station, and that is coordinated by a man whose father had been one of the Navajo code talkers. That is Herb Goodluck, who is the son of the late John Goodluck. Herb is N7HG. And this event takes place, they operate in Arizona at the Veterans Museum Memorial, and they're on for a couple of days. They begin on the 30th of August. I'm sorry, not the 30th of August. Forgive me, messed that one up. They're going to be on from the 10th to the 15th of August using the call sign N7C, and they're going to be using CW phone and FT8. These Marines are honored by this every year, and it's a very popular event. The second event will be out in California, and it's a different kind of code. This will be messages sent encrypted in the style of the Enigma machine that was used by the Germans during World War II. Maritime radio station KPH will be broadcasting messages that are to be decoded. These messages are sent in groups of 5 letters each, and then they're to be decoded and then once again decoded using the methodology of the Enigma machine. So a lot of work for people's brains. So code jockeys are really going to enjoy this, and it does look like a lot of fun. It's not a special event station per se, but it is an activity, and it sounds like a really fun one. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, it does sound fun because I know Dan did the second event with the Enigma machine, I think last year, and he thoroughly enjoyed it. So that was a good one. Ed, what do you think on this one?
Well, I think Karen's covered it all. Only point I'll point out is the KPH, the Marine radio station in California, will not be transmitting on amateur frequencies. They will be using their commercial frequencies that they've had for 70, 80, 90 years, whatever. So you can think of this almost as a challenge for shortwave listeners, where they can listen to the KPH station, receive and decode, first of all, the CW and RTTY, but because, of course, it's encrypted, this could never be sent on amateur frequencies. And then you can apply, if you manage to actually then decode the data you've received, and there's a link in the show notes as to where you have to go for that, and to submit your solutions, so to speak. And the Navajo code talkers, coming back to the first half, I think the basic part of this was, while you have a small group of people, small nation, who have their own language, and you use that either sending a CW or over phone as well. I think during the war it was mainly CW. Of course, anybody intercepting that would be going, what are these words? What's it mean? Because I doubt if any of the Japanese military or the German military spoke Navajo. And through that, just through the simple fact that you put these people strategically in separate groups, train them on how to use the radios, you've got a code automatically, because it's a different language that only the Navajo understand. So that was whoever had that idea was brilliant, because that's a really good way, and it worked out very well, because nobody ever realised on the enemy side that what was being spoken or sent by CW was actually in the Navajo language. They just thought it's encoded in some way, or it's something else. It's not. It doesn't make sense. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, some interesting thoughts you had there, Ed. Now, Edmund, I know you like special events, but you're going to have a go at this one? I know we're busy a fair amount in the next few weeks on a number of events, but do you think you'd be able to do this one?
Personally, probably not, because my antenna setup at home is such that it's very unusual for me to make QSOs across the Atlantic. Having said that, though, if you have a look on qrz.com and enter the call sign that Caryn gave a few moments ago, the qrz.com page is well worth looking at in terms of photographs and information, but particularly the photographs. Regarding the Kilo Papa Hotel maritime transmissions, I've been having a look around, and apologies if I've missed it. It's been a long day. I'm trying to find a list of frequencies that they will be active on for these encoded transmissions, and I haven't actually been able to see any anywhere, so I would think the prime suspects are probably the 6 megahertz, 8 megahertz and 12 megahertz HF marine bands. But if anybody knows specific frequencies, I'd be interested to hear.
Yeah, well, as I say, I don't know as such, but some interesting special events happening there. And as I say, I know you and I will be doing a number of special events in the next few weeks. So one more, Edmund, maybe. Not guaranteed, though. Right, let's move to our next news story. Pakistan hikes radio-related fees. Now, the fees have gone up in Pakistan from 450 rupees to 5,000 rupees. Ed, you did some calculations and said that's like going up from $1.60 to $18 for a 5-year license. Doesn't sound a lot, but, it depends on the cost of living out there, which is going up at a stupid rate. So, Ed, I'm going to pass this one to you first.
Yeah, okay. I mean, my first comment was the title of it is Pakistan hikes radio-related fees, and hikes infers some evil action. And in actual fact, if you look at this, they haven't been increased for 25 years, during which time the cost of living has gone up 700%, so 7 times. So if you take what was paid 25 years ago and up to a few weeks ago, the 450 rupees times 700% times 7 takes it just over 3,000 rupees. Well, they're increasing it to 5,000. So maybe it should have gone up to $13 US dollars. It's gone up to $18 US dollars. Well, if they only expect to put the price up again in another 5 years or 10 years, they've probably got a little bit in there extra. The point, though, is that this is for 5 years. So, we're talking about a license fee of, $3 something per year. Now, for the less well-off families in Pakistan, that's $3.50 they don't want to spend. However, the less well-off families in Pakistan are probably not going to be radio amateurs because the cost of the equipment is so high. Comparing this cost for a license for 5 years, $18 in Pakistan, compared to €60 for 1 year in Germany, or 50-something or other euros anyway, this is not expensive. And price hike, I don't think it's a price hike. They've just adjusted to the cost of living. And yeah, I don't see this reducing the number of amateurs in Pakistan, as I believe the people paying this are probably in the middle income range. And, there are some very well-off people in Pakistan, there's some middle, and there's some very poor people, unfortunately. But as I said, I don't think the poor people would be into amateur radio in any case. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept there, Ed. I mean, I must admit, when I passed my licence, must be 25, 26 years ago, it used to cost in the UK £15 a year. And then they did away with the licence, paying for a licence. So I suppose I'm very lucky in the UK because it doesn't cost us a penny, providing we reauthorize it every 5 years. Edmund, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, I echo what Ed said, really. I mean, any amount of money can be breakfast or a fortune, depending on how wealthy you are. But yes, even though in percentage terms this is quite a large increase, even so spread over 5 years, it's not a huge amount of money financially. So I don't think this is going to put off a huge number of people or get a huge number of people to decide to not revalidate their license. But I suppose there may be a few people in that country who might be tempted to think to themselves, well, I'm paying a lot more now than I was previously. What extra do I get? And I'm not going to try to answer that question, Martin. Back to you.
Yeah, throw the hand grenade in the room and walk away. Fine, no problems, Edmund, on that one. I understand. Caryn, have we left you anything to say on this one?
Well, just a little bit. I know here in the States, Congress mandated the ham radio license cost to go $35. It's a 10-year license, so that comes out to $350 a year. And people were calling it, some people, not everybody, but some people called it outrageous and obscene. So you will always have people who don't like a fee imposed where something's either been free or lower cost. That said, I mean, all radio related licenses in Pakistan, all of them, not just amateur radio, the fees are going up. And I would guess that some of them are going up much more dramatically than the ham radio licenses. Not living in Pakistan, I cannot judge what kind of hardship this would or would not impose for a family or any operator. I don't know if we're going to see the impact immediately, because the term of the license is 5 years. The initial license is only 1 year, and then they renew for a 5-year period. So it will be interesting just to keep tabs on it and watch and see what develops. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and we made the announcement that this is happening. It seems in, more affluent parts of the world like the UK, our license is free, and whereas in a third world country, you got to pay for it. Another story on that one. Right. Moving to our last news story. Edmund, I'm going to let you go first on this one because you haven't had a first go. HamTV is active on the International Space Station again. What do you think?
Well, I've often have the scanner going in the background, and it was noticeable I wasn't really receiving many signals at all recently from the International Space Station. Not even the crossband repeater very often, but within the last week or so, I have received some absolutely colossal signals from the International Space Station transmitting slow scan TV on 145.800 for the first time in what feels like a very long time. And the antenna was just my collinear, which is okay when the satellite is rising and setting, but not so good when the International Space Station is sort of directly vertically above it. But even when the ISS was at the height of its pass, there were still really strong signals coming in. So I would say they've certainly turned the power up compared to a while back, and I assume they're still using the same antenna. So yes, I didn't decode any of these signals because I didn't have anything plugged in at the time for decoding purposes. But if that's the shape of things to come, then I would say it's up and running very well, Martin.
Well, that's good. Well, that's good news, isn't it? So that'll be a good one on that. Caryn, what's your thoughts on this one?
Oh, this was a much anticipated return aboard the ISS. I believe the installation was taking place over the course of about a year, and then it went live on the 29th of July, and people were waiting and giving their report to the British Amateur Television Club. And people were very excited to have it back. I don't do amateur TV, but I can appreciate what it does, and I can appreciate that it is another way to to utilize this technology. I hope it will have a good run. I hope it will have a good and uninterrupted run until such time as, unfortunately, the ISS gets decommissioned. All good things must come to an end, unfortunately. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, it's a good point you raised that the ISS will decommission in a few years' time, not many more. But yeah, it's good news we can still get stuff from there. Ed, have we left you anything to say on this one?
Yeah, a couple of points. First of all, don't hope to hear anything from HamTV on 145.8. It transmits down on 2 gigahertz or 2.3 gigahertz. I remember it's a digital TV signal, so it needs some bandwidth. And yeah, the purpose of HamTV is really the video link to go with the contacts with the schools. So you have your Irish contact with the school, and rather than just radio, you also get then video in both directions. So it's actually a very good promotional point for amateur radio when people see on the TV set that, hey, somebody's doing an amateur radio link, but it's with TV as well, or with video as well. It adds to the a better image of amateur radio when some of these school contacts get covered on either national TV or local TV or whatever. That if HamTV is running as well at the same time, which the intention is it will be, then it's all good. And that's in, not sure which module it's in, but the other thing you mentioned, Edmund, about the stronger signals all of a sudden, it's possible they had to swap some antennas around. I think they've got 3 antennas on the ISS that's used with the amateur radio equipment, and they can switch between them, and maybe they were resetting up for running the next Irish contact from within the same module of where the HamTV is now installed, and therefore had to recable or re-switch antennas. And the other stuff like the SSTV stuff is maybe on an antenna in a different part of the ISS that might give you a better signal. So, the best thing on all of that is to check what AMSAT says, AMSAT UK, AMSAT DL, AMSAT North America. And if people are interested in this, the other benefit, if you look in the show notes, we've added in a link to the page where when HamTV is running, it also gets streamed to the internet. So you can watch and listen into that communication as well while it's happening in the school contacts. So all good. Shame it's been away a while. Let's hope, as the others are saying, it's going to keep running for the next 5 years until 2030, when I believe the current decommission date has been set for the ISS. And then let's hope something similar gets put on whatever the next experimental space station is from whichever or all of the nations putting them up there. It'd be great to get amateur radio on all of them. And yeah, so back to you on that, Martin.
Yeah, lots of interesting stuff, and it is nice that we got it back. And if it is TV for when they're doing school events, then that's even better. So that's a good one. Right, that concludes our news stories. Let's find out what the team have been up to since the last time we spoke. And I haven't done very much, guys, so I hope you're going to bail me out a little bit here. Caryn, we always go ladies first. What have you been up to since the last time we spoke?
Well, the temperatures have dropped here in New York, which means I can safely go outside and do POTA again without being consumed by large and small flying insects, we hope. I've been out to do 2 POTAs in the last couple of days. Had a great time. The first POTA was with the KX2, the PAC-10 end-fed random wire, and the POTA 33 mast. We did well from one park. We left when the park got a little too noisy because it was a Sunday. Then yesterday, I went up to a new location for me, which was Target Rock National Wildlife Refuge. Took the 891 for that. It was astonishing. I only had a half hour, believe it or not, because it was a busy day. But how can you get up on a beautiful day and not find a little bit of time to go do a POTA? So I did that. Feeling good, feeling real good to be back out there calling CQ POTA. Did the Randomgram event recently, which is the Straight Key Century Club event. Not Enigma quality, but nonetheless a very wonderful event that is a lot of fun. And for any CW ops looking to sharpen their listening ability, their ability to copy, it's just a super exercise, and everybody wants everybody else to succeed. It's not competitive in that sense. You want somebody to copy what you're sending. They want you to copy what they are sending. So it's a really excellent way to do your code practice and make some friends. And it's a lot of laughs too. Of course, International Dog Day and International Cat Day are in full swing, and I hope everybody listening will try for stations on both sides of the pond. The US team will be on the air just for 2 days. It will be Thursday and Friday. Goodness, it just occurred to me that by the time this podcast is released, those days will be past. But you still have a chance to catch the US team for International Dog Day, and that will be on the 20th of August through the 26th of August. Team Kilo 2 Delta, or I should say Kilo 2 Dog, with 11 very motivated operators waiting to take your calls. We are doing CW and single sideband, so come and get us. And that's it, Martin. I think that's probably enough. Back to you.
Yeah, you've been busy, and sounds good. And I'm sure that everybody's going to talk about the Cat and Dog Day event that you three have been putting on, because it's very good events. Right, Edmund, what have you been up to since the last time we spoke?
Well, I have also been involved with the International Cat Day event. The day itself, Friday the 8th of August, will have come and gone by the time this podcast is released, but there are cat-related stations on the air throughout August, so if you visit catdayradio.org, and that's all one word, catdayradio.org, full details and onward links appear on that page. I am responsible for GB4 Cat, and I'm voice modes only, so SSB, AM and FM, and I do plan to pop up reasonably regularly, everywhere between 40 metres and 70 centimetres, so been going for a few days already, and I've got about 65 contacts in the logs, so hopefully that number will increase considerably by Friday the 29th of August, which is the last day that I have the notice of variation. The third weekend in August, so that's Saturday the 16th and Sunday the 17th, is the International Lighthouse and Lightship Weekend, which is always good fun. More information about that at www.illw.net. And I will be at Shoreham Lighthouse in West Sussex I don't know at this stage for sure if the local club is doing anything or not. If they are or if they aren't, either way I'll be down there. Whether it will be for both days or just one of the 2 days, if I do end up going it alone, there's a bit of a question mark over that. But have a look at the website. There are well over 300 stations registered already, and that number usually increases quite a lot and quite quickly the closer that you get to the event. So hope to work some of you from Shoreham Lighthouse. I think that's everything, Martin, so back to you.
Right, well, that sounds good fun. That sounds good fun. Ed, what have you been up to since the last time we spoke?
Well, not to bore the listeners, but I've been heavily involved in International Dog Day. Out of Germany, we're running DL0 Dog, DA0 Dog, and also for Cat Day, DL0 Cat and DA0 Cat. And the total number of contacts into the certificate award scheme and the contacts generally, the cats are ahead. They're at 900, the dog's only 700 so far. As you can tell, most of the stations started at the beginning of August and will run all the way through August. For details about Dog Day, it's dogdayradio, all one word, .org. And so Cat Day Radio for the International Day of Cats and Dog Day Radio for the International Day of Dogs. In both cases, these special events are not meant to be a 5-9 thank you, give me my certificate, rather a chance to chat. And what we are finding, and what I'm certainly hearing, is that people calling are owners of dogs from dog pounds and or people who have had dogs for many years. And so there's a chance there for the caller to talk about their dogs and experiences, and it's generally angled in that kind of way. And yes, as Karen said, on HF or on CW and SSB, no digital data modes. We might reconsider that next year, but for this year, no. And on VHF, yeah, also phone, be it FM, AM, sideband, and CW in some cases, but I think Edmund covered it basically. The operation on 2 meters and 77s is basically local contacts from the stations. There is an award scheme behind all of this as well, depending on how many of the different special event stations you work. There's a different certificate, and details are all up at the 2 websites we just mentioned. So yeah, lots of fun, lots of work. Apart from that, since we've had like 2 weeks of rain, I've been doing things like sorting out my portable equipment in the hope that soon I'll be able to get out and do a little bit of bicycle-based portable operation. So push bike, not e-bike, but push bike, cycle it yourself. And I've also been working on some other modifications to the radio gear to build some speech compressors into some of the QRP radios I have. And we're still in the lucky situation here in Europe that we have access to these very cheap modules and out of China or through dealers in Germany from China, and at ridiculously low prices, so less than you could pay less than it would cost you to build them yourself. So I'm taking advantage of that, and I was surprised when these speech compressor boards came in how small they were, smaller than a postage stamp. So I was rather surprised at that. And yeah, so electronic things happening, but the main job at the moment, now that I've got my book editing behind me, is indeed the International Dog Day, and getting on the air as much as I can for that. And yeah, watch the DX clusters for postings for any call sign with DOG at the end or CAT at the end, and please come and give us a call. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, sounds interesting, Ed, and you've been a busy boy. Well, I've got a fair amount on my list here, but not all of it is radio. I spoke I was on the talk group the other day and I spoke to my friend Richard 5B4AJG, who I believe is now over here in the UK, and hopefully we'll get some time to catch up with Richard. I always used to see Richard when I was in Cyprus when I went out there. Simon G7, and I'm sorry, Simon, I couldn't find his call sign quickly enough. I have it somewhere. But Simon's moved back from Canada. Simon used to be VA3SII, and we was having a long conversation, and he tells me that he was the originator of a phrase that's used on a number of the other podcasts. He was the originator of good after, evening, noon. So good after, evening, noon, Simon. And yeah, not one I use, but I give you the credit, you did do that one. Was up the club the other night, spent most of the night answering questions to a new ham. He was asking all sorts of questions and I was giving him the right answers. Because once you've passed your test, the foundation, you've still got a fair way to go. And, you know, he hasn't got the experience of doing a lot of these things. So he's asking me a lot of questions. HF bands have been pretty much dead where I am. I don't know what it's been like for everybody else, but pretty much dead. Edmund and I did do the windmill event down at Ashford in Kent. That was quite an interesting day out. The local gas main had been dug up, and to get to the site was an absolute nightmare. But a fair few people made it through all the road diversions and one thing or another, and it was always good fun to see the boys. Been playing with a few toys, with some of my toys over the last few days, and partly that's what's going to be in the feature. So there'll be more in the feature on that one. We did fix, Chris and I fixed the internet cable up at the Scout Hall. The foxes had chewed through it and we had to repair it and get it out of the way of the foxes. And I think that's now successfully done, because the internet was on at the Scout Hall the last week, so that was good news. And Colin's released a whole load of videos up onto YouTube, so all 10 of the videos we did in Freakshaven are now up on YouTube and available for anybody to see what we were up to. Last thing is, and I wrote a list here, so some of the guys have covered this, but just the upcoming events for the next few weeks as such. Lighthouse and Lightship Weekend is the 16th, 17th of August. British Inland Waterways, a special event is between the 23rd and 25th of August. Possibly, I think I will be at the Lighthouse on the 16th, and I'll possibly be out on the 24th doing British Inland Waterways. Going to use Sutton and Cheam's club call sign of G2XP for the waterways. We won't do 433 Alive, but that's also on the 23rd to 25th, so I might get some time around then that it's on. I can't remember which day. Edmund's well ahead on the cat month. Dog Day, as I say, Ed and Caryn have told you about. National Hamfest, 5th and 6th of September. SSB Field Day, 6th and 7th of September. The Dover Rally boys are doing their autumn rally on the 20th of September. So the Dover Rally should be fun if anybody wants to go there. And Railways on the Air is the 27th and 28th of September. And the Dover Club are also doing that at a narrow gauge railway down in Dover. So there's a lot of events happening in the next few weeks, and should be fun for us on amateur radio. Right, all that's left for me to do now is to thank you guys for turning up and keeping me company. I'd like to thank Caryn Eve Murray KD2GUT.
Another good one, Martin. Thanks so much. 7-3.
Yeah, thank you, Caryn. I'd like to thank Mr. Edmund Spicer M0MNG.
Thanks for having me on, Martin.
No problems, Edmund. And also over there in Germany, Mr. Ed Durrant DD5LP.
Yep, thanks, Martin, and we'll do it again in another month's time.
We certainly will, Ed, mate. No problems at all with that one. Okay, 73 guys, and we'll move on to the podcast. 73s.
73.
Keep your amateur ham radio podcast advert free by donating less than a length of coax. Visit www.icqpodcast.com/donate now. For all the news, links and information, visit www.icqpodcast.com.
Now it's time to have a look at the news in brief from me, Colin M6BRY. We start with news here from the ARRL that an interesting new project is underway. Called Radio Alpha, it's a museum and research library available for viewing at the arrl.org/museum. It is envisaged to be a Wikipedia-like project administered by a group of trusted volunteers. So the aim of the project is to serve as a definitive repository of information, offering detailed descriptions and contextual data on pivotal figures, influential organisations, pioneering companies, transformative interventions and iconic equipment that have shaped the amateur radio landscape. Radio Alpha addresses the critical need for a centralised, reliable and easily navigatable archive of amateur radio's past. Now, a little bit importantly here, they're aiming for this project to be a non-commercial project, so it's going to be free of advertising, spam and clickbait, prioritising the integrity of the historical content and providing an uncluttered user experience. Now, Radio Alpha is seeking contributors and volunteers to help develop the content, so you can get involved, say, if you have something to offer. So check this project out. So it's either arrl.org/museum or arrl.org/Radio Alpha. So you might hear some new suffixes on the air because a couple of our regions are issuing some new call signs. So if you're in India, listen out for an assigned VU2 prefix, as I say, and that's going to be a combination of letters such as VU22DX or VU29AR. This is a new batch of call signs that are going to be out from India. There's also a restricted grade license, a VU3 prefix, which you can get hold of there. Now they've got slightly longer call signs as well, so you'll be looking out for things like VU33ABS in relation to that there. So good news, there's more call signs coming on board, must be very popular in India there. And also about as well in Sweden, amateurs who have received a new entry-level class certificate are identifying themselves with the country's new call sign Sierra Hotel SH. These amateurs can be heard on 40, 20, 15, 10, 6 and 2 metres, and they're permitted to use a maximum of 25 watts of power. Now in the UK, the RSGB's National Radio Centre has been recognised as a Traveller's Choice Award recipient on the TripAdvisor website. The award goes to the top 10% of listings from around the world on TripAdvisor, and is based upon genuine feedback for anyone in the community who has visited and left an authentic first-hand review on TripAdvisor over the last 12 months. So great news for the National Radio Centre there, based in Bletchley Park. And just a reminder, if you haven't visited as well, you can receive free entry to Bletchley Park in the RSGB National Radio Centre as one of your benefits of being an RSGB member if you are the case. So do check out that offering. If you've not been, it's certainly worth a visit. I've been myself and along with Dad Martin, and we thoroughly enjoyed our day out there. So do check out as I say, that wonderful opportunity, and not only that, but as I say, one of TripAdvisor's best things to go to. And we finish up with a special event station happening in September. Frank Howell, Kilo 4 Foxtrot Mike Hotel, is behind a project of the Go to Church event, which is going to be all about bringing churches on the air on the 13th of September. So basically what it's saying is go to church and bring your HF radio with you as well and get your church on the air. So we're going to pop a link to Frank's page detailing all the information that's there for you, so you can do a Chota station on the 13th of September. So thanks, Frank, for letting us know about that event. Now, before we head over to our feature in this episode, Martin M1MRB has had some thoughts in regard to a news story we ran last episode on the ATS satellites. Hopefully it'll be thought-provoking.
Hi guys, as a follow-up to an article we covered in the previous podcast, 461, I wanted to talk very quickly about this AST satellite system that is going into space. Now, I know colleagues at the RSGB and the ARRL are also been very vocal about this, but I've just been sent a document by podcast presenter Frank Howell, K4FMH, to me, and on reading it, I'm getting very, very worried. Now, the document was produced by RKF Engineering, and the title of the document is Potential Interference to Amateur Operation at 430 to 440 megahertz. Now, this is talking about the AST satellite group that want to put satellites operating on these frequencies. And if I'm reading this right, it's okay to cause interference. Because if they're going to do it, why shouldn't I? Well, I won't, because I'm a licensed amateur and I have responsibility and I play by the rules. But it really does annoy me a little bit that they're openly admitting that they're going to cause interference. So, they've already confirmed it. They say that transmissions in the 430 to 440 band are narrowband, 50 kilohertz wide. Well, that's a minimum of 2 channels if you're using FM up there on those frequencies. And if they've chosen a different part of our band, you could wipe out 50 K's worth of the SSB or the CW end of the band. And, you know, that's just interference completely. Now, they say they're going to run 10 watts, and this is the one that really worries me. They said they're going to run just less than 10 watts EIRP. Okay, how many people are not going to be able to get into their car in a much bigger area when these satellites are transmitting? Now, in fairness, you know, these are key fobs, car key fobs that open cars all around the world, and we've become useful to them. The problem is they're in the low part of the UHF band. Now, it happens at my house if one of my hotspots is running 10 milliwatts. Mrs. B can't open the car, and I have to be sensible about it and stop. We're talking about, 7 or nearly 10 watts being transmitted from a satellite with nothing in its way. That's going to totally swamp the car receivers. So how many people are going to be standing there in the rain or poor weather, unable to get into their vehicles because one of these satellites is going to transmit for potentially at least 3 minutes? Well, they're saying it could transmit for 3 minutes. The other even bigger worry on that is for ladies that are out on their own of a night time, or anybody who's likely to be is going to be attacked and is trying to get back to their vehicle to give them some safety, like a safety cage. If they push the button on one of these satellites is transmitting, they can't get in their car for a safety reason. So that worries me excessively. Now, I'm not going to work for too long, but they say that less than 1% per pass has been reported. Now, 1% of problems. But did the public notice was happening? How many devices went away for repair because they didn't work properly? Now, okay, so you think I'm being silly, but this is a cost to the general public. If things stop working, then they don't know that there's a satellite utilisation going on up there on 430 to 440 megahertz. It's just things stop working. They can't get in their cars or whatever. So this worries me. And, all right, it's 1%. That's what they tell us. But they've only got one satellite up there at the moment. They're planning to put 248 of these satellites up there. So that's going to be mega interference to all sorts of things. Maybe you think I'm being silly, but I'm really riled up over this, and it's not something that we really get riled up with on the podcast. But I still think this should be stopped. In fairness, I think it should be stopped. But in fairness, who's going to listen to me? I'm one person. We've all got to start banging the drum on this one. I hope this has probably woken a few of you up, and, this has got to stop. Contact various members of organisations in your national organisation and have your point taken. I hope I haven't wound you up too much, but it really did annoy me. Thanks for listening.
And now for this episode's feature from the ICQ podcast.
Hi guys, for this episode's feature, I wanted to talk about some service aids, things to make your life easy. Now, some of you have probably already got some of these. You may have even better devices that I'm going to talk about today. But for others, hopefully you'll find it of interest. Now, I've always been a person who is not very strong at lifting things, but I've also been very strong in the wrist, and often accused of over-tightening things, a la nuts or screws, and people having trouble getting them undone. So, after a little bit of thinking about this and watching a couple of YouTube videos, I realised that I ought to tighten SMA connectors to a certain level. Now, I've always tried very hard with SMA connectors not to over-tighten them, because I know that I'm a bit of an animal when I go to tighten things up. So I watched a video, and the guy was showing us that if they're not tightened down properly, you do get misreadings when you're testing things. And he was showing torquing it down. So I went off and looked for a torque wrench. Now, in fairness, they aren't cheap, normally, and you start to think, well, is it worth buying these? I mean, some of the ones I was spotting were well over £200, or in the high, almost £200 region. So I didn't really want to go for something expensive, because I don't torque down that many. If I was doing RF connections day in, day out, then the £200 one would probably be well worth the money spent. So I had a look round and I found a torque wrench for torquing down SMA connectors. The one I came across was a 3H, the word 3, T-H-R-E-E, H, torque wrench for SMA 8mm RF connectors. And it torques down, I believe, to 1 nanometer. And it says it's high accuracy. Well, I'm not going to argue at the moment on that one. But it's a useful little tool. I found it eventually. I paid around £20 for this. So compared with the £200 ones, I think I got quite a good buy. And when you tighten up your SMA connector, when you get to the torque level, you literally, the head bends over at 90 degrees. So instead of having a click like you would normally have on a torque wrench, this one clicks over 90 degrees. It is technically adjustable. If you were to put a hexagonal bit up the base of it, you could adjust it. And I think that what that does is puts more tension on the spring inside, which will stop it from turning over until you've got a much higher pressure. That is up to you. I've left it as is, and it works very well for me. And I don't think that was too bad. It's not the best tool in the world, but for £20 as against £200, hopefully I'm not going to break any more SMA connectors. Next tool I bought, and this is once again, you may already have something that does this, you may not. And I've talked about this before. LEDs have a turn-on voltage of in excess of 1.7 volts. So I think a red LED turns on about 1.7 and white and blue ones around the 3 volt area. And different colours have different turn-on voltages. Now if your multimeter is set with a 1.5 volt battery, you're never going to turn the LED on, so it's always going to look as open circuit both ways. I've talked about using a resistor and a 9 volt battery before on this podcast, but I decided that I saw this little LED tester, and you know what? I thought it might be worth a shot. It's a little thing called an LED tester. You can look up on the internet for these. This one has a number of rows of sockets, and basically you can put an LED in there and push the button and it should light up. Now, if it pushes the button and it lights up, you've got a good LED. The other thing you can do with this one is you can test that. You can set the current range, depending on which socket you put it into, between 2 and 150 milliamps. So, just a bit of fun, and it will test double LEDs, the 2 colour ones as well. So, a little box, I paid round about £5 for it, UK money. Not that expensive, nice little box. Yeah, you can find them. It fits in your hand, red button you push and away it goes. The last thing I was going to tell you about today is a component tester, and I call it a component tester. I'm going to pronounce the name as best I can, the manufacturer, but I'll spell it for you. First, LCR-P1 transistor tester. Now, the company name, and I'll pronounce this phonetically for you, is Fox November India Romeo Sierra Tango, and the model number is the LCR-P1. A lot of these advertised on the internet. Are they any use? Well, I thought I'd have a look at one because I have a component tester from many moons ago, and it works quite well. The problem is it was never in a case, and I've got it in a little plastic box that I get out and fit a battery onto it when I want to use it. But this one has a case, and it has some nice features. So I thought, tell you what, give it a try. So there we go. What am I going to try? Well, it will measure transistors. It's got one of these zero insertion IC sockets, which are numbered so the device can work out where your pin connections are. So you can test transistors in there. You plug them into the device, and it will tell you which is the base emitter and collector, and it will tell you more information about the device as well. You can also test diodes to make sure they work. Now, the device says it tests triodes. No, it doesn't. That's a mistake, I think, or a misunderstanding of what the Chinese manufacturer, when he's writing the documentation up, got. It doesn't measure thermionic valves or tubes, as our American cousins would say. And quite rightly, not many people are going to use that anyway. It also does field effect transistors, which is great. But one thing I really got excited about with this one is you can measure Zener diodes. So it will put a higher voltage across the Zener and see what the breakdown voltage is for you and tell you what the Zener diode is. You can also do SCRs, read SCRs if you plug it into the right zero insertion socket pins, and that's silicon control rectifiers, so do that. It will do LEDs, so probably I didn't need the LED tester in the first place, but it was a bit of fun. It also does capacitance, resistance, inductance, and voltage up to 4.5 volts. Now, one other strange thing in this device is you can select decode infrared handsets or controllers and see what they are sending. So you switch it to infrared, point your device handset at it, and it will tell you various things about what is being transmitted. Now, interesting little thing. I think it works quite well. I don't think it's 100% accurate, but then for the silly money I pay for it, I'm not complaining. It's close enough. If you decide that you're not using leaded components, but you want to do surface mount, you unplug the 04 socket, and there's another little plug-in board that plugs in its place, and you can rest surface mount devices on this bit of board with connectors, and you can measure your surface mount devices just as well. If you put the 04 socket back in, it also comes with 3 leads that plug into the 04 socket, and they have connectors on the end. So big transistors and big devices, which are too big to plug into the 04 socket, can be measured using its external leads. So, for around £20, I thought it was a worthwhile little tool. It's something that you're going to use quite regularly, I think, if you experiment or play. Whether it's accurate is brilliant, I don't know, but it's very, very accessible. You can put it in your pocket, you can have it on the bench, it's rechargeable, and in fairness, for £20, it works very, very well. And the beauty of it is, it does have a colour display on it, which is very, very good. Anyway, 3 little devices, the torque wrench, the LED tester, and the component tester or transistor tester. Okay, some of you probably already got them, but if you haven't, and you just fancy something to play with, might be worth a look. I hope this was of interest.
The ICQ Podcast. Come for a moment. Stay for an hour.
Well, I hope, as always, you enjoyed this episode's feature there on Service Aids, and always hope you get something from our wonderful features, and also Martin's thought-provoking thoughts and responses to the AST satellite's potential interference. So certainly do show your thoughts as well. There's a lot of the national organisations are putting forward their recommendations, etc. So certainly do, add to that weight of thought going forward. Now, as always, we'd like to thank our donors this episode who keep our show advert free and help us pay our way. We really do appreciate your very kind support. So John DeAndrea Senior, AA5 Juliet Delta, Charles Carter, AA0 Romeo India, Roy Jones, VK6 Romeo, and our monthly subscription donors. Thank you so very much for helping us out. It's always greatly appreciated. It's great to see the value that you get from our show. If you've received value from the ICQ podcast this episode and you would like to show that value, we've got a very simple way of doing it. It's called the value for value model. All you got to do is go to ICQPodcast.com/donate, just like everyone else has done this episode. You choose a figure that's of importance to you for the value received from the show, and click on the option there and send it our way, and everything that we get goes towards our running costs and keeping your show advert free. So really hope you consider supporting us there. We'd like to thank Caryn KD2 Golf Uniform Tango, Edmund Mike 0 Mike November Golf, and Ed DD5 Lima Papa for taking part in the News Roundtable. Many thanks, guys, for kindly giving us your thoughts and opinions on what's going on in the hobby, along with Martin M1MRB. Right, well, that just wraps up episode 462 of your ICQ Amateur Ham Radio podcast. Really do appreciate, every one of you in downloads and listening and your feedback, etc. We'll be back in a fortnight's time, so hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll catch you again in a fortnight's time. 73's all.